Happy Thursday. Are we waiting for permission from a person when we already have permission from God? I'm Cassie with Dream Big Today. It is August 7th, 2025, Thursday, and I want to thank Wendy for switching with me. I can't be on tomorrow. So today I want to talk about Old Testament, Ezra 5. And the nugget that kept sticking out with me, because, you read about it. We have Ezra 5 and 6, a little bit of 4. We have 1 Corinthians 3, 5 through 23. We have Psalm 29 and Proverbs 20, 26 and 27. And it all is very thought-provoking. When you dwell in the word a little bit and you look through comments and you there's a verse that stands out and you can look up what other people have said about it, it's pretty incredible what God shares with you. And when I am doing this, I read it a lot. I read it in other verses. I read the comments. I read here. I listen so I know the words of the names. And what really stuck out to me this time in all of it was how they were so bold and confident in identifying themselves as the servants of God. Ezra 5:11. We are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the temple that was built here many years ago by a great king of Israel. So what's happening is the prophets have come, the temple has stalled, and Paul and I were talking in study yesterday, and I thought it was amazing how they started building the altar in the temple before they started the protection of the walls, because their protection is in God first. And because the generations before have kind of messed that up, they kind of walked away from God, they kind of maybe, they did some things that God did not approve of, and they were put in exile. They were put in Babylon. They were all kind of displaced. And so when they realized what they had done and they were told to go back and build the temple, they were excited to do that. And so this governor, Tattenai, said, "Who is giving you authority to do this?" And they said, "We're servants of God. This is told to us long time ago to rebuild this. We have King Cyrus' permission." And so Governor Tattenai, he does the protocol to write a note to King Darius. And I keep thinking that when King Darius heard their confident answer in, "We are servants of God, of heaven and earth," all of a sudden, I think, he gave them all these provisions. I mean, when you read in 5, when you read in 6, he gave, is it 6? Yeah, he gave them all the provisions they needed. The oil and the salt and the food and the bread and all the stuff. And they gave him total permission to do that. And so, but while they were waiting for someone to say, "Yeah, go ahead and build," they already had permission from God, so they were still building. They didn't stop and wait for permission or a piece of paper or, a permit or a okay. They already got their okay. And I also see it as, so they were confident in identifying themselves and their title with God. And then their allegiance was with God, not a king, not a governor. And they humbled themselves in what had happened before, and they weren't going to let that happen again at this time. And so the other thing was, they didn't fear a governor, a king. They had reverence for their Lord. They had reverence for who was leading them. They were servants of God. And then we read in we read in 1 Corinthians about our job in the Lord. Paul is talking about who is Paul, who is Apollos. We are only God's servants through whom you believe in the good news. One who plants, one who waters, and they work together for the same purpose. All of these Israelites were working together for the same mission. They wanted to rebuild the temple. They had God's approval, and no one was going to stop them. That confidence? Are we that confident? Do I let people stop me from what God has already told me I can do or I am? What is stopping my blessing? Where am I not as confident in? It just was like all this stuff. And God is so good in sharing what he wants us to learn, in dwelling in the word. And a lot of times you can't get that from another person, because you can look up a verse and they have their own perspective. But like Paul says here in 1 Corinthians 3, one waters, one plants. It's God that grows it. So when we can move forward knowing what God has for us and continue to build and continue to grow as we are waiting on him, he's going to bless that. And it just was such an eye-opener for me today in a lot of things. And I know a lot of us are going through personal issues where that might help. So don't let earthly people stop you from what God has put in front of you. And always ask, what are my real motives? Because we don't really know our hearts. God knows our hearts. And when you start to follow him more and more, the desires of your heart change. It's crazy how generation after generation, you can see an attitude of teenagers, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It all changes through the years. And when you know your authority in Christ, it changes how you love them. So I hope that was helpful for somebody today. I know that this reading was very helpful for me. Again, thank you, Wendy, for switching with me. And please know that you are incredibly loved and you are never alone. And the world needs you to go be a blessing this week, this weekend. Thanks for being here.